pray. Amen. Revelation 13 verse 2. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet was as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Have we agreed that the pronoun his in this verse is the dragon as opposed to the beast? Remember we discussed it last week. Sorry? Someone said something?
Repeat what you said.
13 verse 2 says the dragon gave him his power and his seat. Who is the his? So we discussed this last week, and I think we came as a class to a conclusion that it was the dragon. So I'm just checking if we're still in the same place. Jonathan? Yeah? Why is the his the dragon, not the beast?
My argument is history. We see the transition from pagan Rome to papalism, and that pagan Rome gave these three things to the papacy.
Anybody else?
Grammar?
Grammar? I tried the grammar initially, but people objected to the grammar. That's my first stab at it. Larry?
Didn't we say that how can the dragon give himself his own power and himself his own seat? No.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mr. Schmidt?
C 438.2.
Mm-hmm.
Is thus while the dragon primarily represents Satan, it is in the secondary sense a symbol of pagan Rome.
Okay, so we know it's pagan Rome. The power is when?
Over 96.
And we say that because of... Someone say something.
Clovis's military power.
Okay. I actually saw some people smiling as well. Feels some had additional thought. And the seat. 330. A seat is a what? So he has his throne in 330. Yeah. We're going to pick up on that in a second. Part of the other reason that we haven't looked at is when it says his power, his seat, what does it say about the authority?
Great authority.
It could be cited being great.
There's no his.
Whose authority is it? It doesn't say his authority. So there's a distinction made between the authority and the power and the seat.
That's right.
You see that?
Yeah.
So the question is why? So before we answer why, or discuss why, this one I think you do probably need to go into history to work out. What have we said the power and the seat are? I know it's military and rulership. How would we describe that? If we've got power, seat and authority. What do we think the authority is?
State power?
You think the authority is state power. So I've got power, seat and authority. So if the authority is state power, what does a monarch have?
Power and seat.
What was Tyler?
Say that again, sorry?
If you said the authority is state power, What would you describe the seat as? Because this is a king now who has. Who's
I would
ruling.
say the seat is the seat is the state power, because if you're a king, you're ruling over your.
Okay, so that's the
your
state
kingship.
power.
Yeah, I would see it that way.
I misunderstood. I was asking what the authority was.
Oh, the authority. Oh.
Sorry. Right, Rob?
A point was brought out about the authority in the past, that it means that there's no major opposition. Because we know that the authority came, in history when the opposition to the papal supremacy was removed.
508? So,
To 538. Because it was from 508 to 538 is when the Arian kingdoms were removed. And that's when the authority, was in full swing, as far as I understand.
okay, I'd just like to see if someone else has got any thoughts. Mr. Cathy, I've seen you.
Authority, meaning when you have authority, people respond. You can command, and people obey because of authority. Like the police have authority over the citizens.
Okay, so you're saying authority means what? Command.
To command, to rule.
Obey, I think you said.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Have your own way.
Sorry?
Have your own way.
You're on record, Richard, what are your thoughts?
Just a couple thoughts on here, but represent a chart. It says he's made the supreme head of the churches in 538.
Here?
Yes. To the left a little bit.
This one?
He's to the left by
This one?
Yes.
These three kingdoms were taken by Justinian, Emperor of Constantinople, whose decree made the Bishop of Rome supreme head of the churches in 538. You think that's what that is?
That's a part of the authority.
Just a test.
I had it explained to me that it was the authority to change times and laws. Daniel
Authority to
7:25.
change times and laws. So you're going to where? Daniel 7.
Daniel 7:25.
So read that.
And he shall speak great words against the Most High, shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until the time and times and the dividing of time.
Yeah, the way that I understood this before was, so the power and the seat or state powers, since the papacy is an antichrist and he's trying to set himself, above everything that is called God, that he needs those things to take that place of God, and the authority is his authority, which isn't his, to compel the consciences of men. So he's given this, because he has the seat and the power, he gets this authority that's not really his, to compels people's consciences to worship him as God.
Brother Tyler? Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Brother Tyler?
I was going to say something similar, but I think I guess Tess and Nathan kind of already summarized those things up, but you have to see, I think the possessiveness of the his is really important, because state power, obviously you could, in your mind at first glance, you could say that state power and authority might be the same thing, but the dragon had that power to be able to give. God has always given the state power to earthly kingdoms, and that has always been theirs, except for in the time of Israel. But so if this authority is not something that the dragon can give, and we know that state power was something that he did indeed have, then this has to be something else. And I guess we're answering that now as the changing of times and laws, or the compulsion of conscience, which is something that no earthly monarch has.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're saying there's a distinction between these two and the last one.
Definitely.
Yeah? So the dragon has these, he possesses them, he hands them over to the beast because they're his to give. But the last one isn't his to give. And what is it that he has to offer? He has state power.
This is divided into state and church power. Both of them.
These ones? Or that one and that one?
The three. I don't know which. I wouldn't be able to say now which ones
What do you
are
think,
where,
sir?
but I'm just
Oh, I'm
asking.
saying state power.
Okay, and then with the last one would be church.
So, this is religious power or religious authority. And has the state any legitimacy in handing over religious authority to anybody when it doesn't even possess it itself? Yeah? So that's the argument that I had about who the his is. The dragon owns these two things, but it doesn't own religious authority. It has no right to hand over religious authority to anybody if it doesn't possess it in the first place. But nevertheless, pagan Rome gives that to the papacy. And when does that happen? Sorry, Brother?
I was going to say when he makes them the corrector of heretics.
Which is
I have written down 533. Justinian.
533?
Yeah.
533 and then 534. He did it from 533 to went into effect 534.
Anybody else?
I have a question. Could it be said in the understanding of these verses that the dragon gave him his power and his seat, and a result of him giving his power and his seat, then the church ends up usurping great authority, or taking on great authority that wasn't his, but to overstep and take that.
So, what does the word usurp mean?
That it's not yours, and that you're just stealing something. You command something that isn't yours, I guess.
Anyone else?
Yeah, like
Sorry?
you step into a position that you weren't authorized to have in the first place, so you usurping someone else's authority.
Okay, so if I were to usurp something, from you, have I taken that from you that you willingly gave to me?
No, it wasn't willingly given.
Okay. So, if we're going to use the word usurp,
Yeah.
then we're suggesting that whatever this authority it was, the dragon didn't willingly give to the beast. He took something in a way that wasn't given to him.
Okay. Maybe that's not the way then it is, but.
The definition is to take a position of power or importance illegally or by force.
Yeah. So if we know it can't be by force because the church doesn't have that,
Gotcha.
the strength to do that. And then illegally would mean it would be against the law. So did the papacy have this authority against the law? And the answer, if you go back in history, is no. It was actually given to him, it was offered to him.
Okay, so usurp doesn't apply here at all?
No.
Okay.
I don't think the word usurp applies because it's given voluntarily
Okay.
by pagan Rome. Justinian gives it to him. But he doesn't have any legal basis to do so. So we want to see that there's state power and religious power in this verse. Now we took a long time to go through 13.2, and 13.2 is relatively a straightforward verse in our message. Most of the time we'd never go through that. But I want us to get used to the idea of actually reading verses and trying to understand what they're saying. And in my travels, I notice a lot that we don't have a habit of doing that, of actually trying to understand what the verses mean. Because if you don't, you fall into the problem that you don't see the implications of what it's showing. So one of the things that we've seen is, if this is, oh, we didn't give a date for this. Oh, yes, we did. We did, didn't we? 533. So we've got 533. He has religious authority. Let's go to this 330 date. Yeah.
533, Justinian was the emperor of East Rome.
Yes.
Still pagan Rome who gave the authority.
Yes. Is that a question or a statement?
What, I didn't hear, a little louder.
We were saying that the great authority is not his, so it's not pagan Rome's authority.
Mm-hmm.
But Justinian, he was the emperor of East Rome, that's still pagan Rome. So the emperor of pagan Rome gave the Pope great authority.
Yes. Is that a question or a statement, I think?
I don't get that you say that. I understand that there's a distinction between authority and state power, but doesn't this show the historical fact that it was pagan's authority, pagan Rome's authority?
I think it shows the historical fact that it was given to the papacy, but I think it's showing the...
But how can you give something if you don't own it?
How can you give something if you don't own it, Sister Brittany?
I was just going to add, if we were just going by the grammar, it would indicate that the dragon gave great authority.
So he agrees with that, but he's asking, how can you give something that you don't have?
Because I understood the discussion that that great authority was not in possession of the pagan Rome. Maybe I understood it wrong, but so I understood the conscience.
So yeah, so does the dragon power have religious authority over people? Someone said about conscience.
I mentioned conscience.
So who gave pagan Rome the religious authority to do things? Let me ask a different question. Who gave pagan Rome the state power to do things? He set up kings, Frankenstein thing, kings. Isn't it God that did that?
It's true.
So at the level, if God did that, you know, God gave him all of this, and he says, now I own it legitimately in the sight of heaven, but God never gave them religious authority. That was never offered to any of those kingdoms. That's how I understand what this passage is teaching. It's teaching that, you know, you can do what you want. You can go and kill everybody illegally, but you don't have any. It's not in your authority or power or right. You have it in power or something. Your right to do that. You don't have that kind of authority that's given from God to do certain things. Anyone else?
I think that in the wilderness of temptation that was brought out with Christ, when the devil told him to bow down, and he said, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. So it was showing that Satan had claimed to be the ruler of the earth. So therefore he would be that, he is the dragon power there, and he's telling Christ to worship him. And Christ now points him to the true authority, saying, you don't have that power for me to compel me to bow down to you. That authority belongs to God.
Is that enough? Yeah.
We don't have to continue, but not really.
It's not enough.
No, but you can go on.
Well, if it's not enough, might not be for someone else. It's the test.
I think it's kind of a similar problem in Daniel 7 where it says the papacy thinks to change times and laws. Because in this verse it refuses to say that it does change times and laws, and we know that it does, like France 40 and a 10-day week. They can do those things. But in another level it only thinks to do it because what God has ordained they can't actually change.
Amen.
Brother?
No, it's good.
Sorry?
No, I passed.
You sure?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, so if you're kind of easygoing with that.
I can live with that. Fine.
Good. You have to live with that now. 330 AD. Let's just have a quick look at 330 AD. What's he given in 330 AD? He's given his seat, and the seat is? Sorry?
State power.
State power. A throne, we've called it a throne.
A throne, yeah.
Okay, let me ask this question then. Daniel 11 verse 40. Part A and Daniel 11 verse 40 part B. Does everybody understand why I'd say part A and part B? Yeah? So, can we have some dates? Okay, so this is straightforward, yeah? 1798 and 1989. In this part of the verse here, the papacy's title is what?
Which part did you do, A or B?
Part A.
Oh.
What's the papacy's title? No, it's not a trick question. King of the North. And in the second part of the verse, its title is? It's not a trick question, I'm just... Now you're getting all cautious. You think I'm doing some trickery. King of the North. Okay, what do we call this power here? This papal power? Call it papal Rome or something?
Yeah.
Yeah? What do we call this one?
Modern Rome.
So we give it a different name. Why do we give it a different name for? Sorry? My sister? You said somebody said something?
I said change of dispensation.
Change it. What's changed? What dispensation is, what we changed from and into?
Does he move?
It is healing the reborn. Priest went from
You've got to speak a bit louder because you can't have private conversations.
Millerite history to our history.
Millerite history to our history? Would that work? Dispensational change? Brother?
I understand about Daniel 11 verse 40, part A, is that in 1798 the papal power lost its civil power there. And then in part B, you see you have its religious entity there. You have the both of them.
Say a bit louder.
I
got the first part, it lost its civil power.
Yeah,
in part B.
Yeah, in 1989 we see where it started to receive
What's it?
The papacy.
So you're saying it's the same name? So I'm asking why we give it a different name.
Because to me, in my mind, I'm just looking at part A. He's saying that he lost his civil power. He never had any civil power in 1798.
It being the papacy?
Yes, never have any
Papal Rome?
Yes.
Okay, then part B?
So I'm just wondering if the reason I would change it, I'm just saying in my mind, if it is because he lost his civil power in 1798. I'm just...
And part B?
Yeah, I'm just giving a question. I don't fully...
Sorry, I think you're telling this.
So I think the different name that you're talking about is at the USA?
Are we talking about the USA now?
For part B, I'm asking.
So now we're saying the King of the North is the USA. So who's the ships, chariots and horsemen?
Yeah. I got your point. Okay, so then are you talking about the new name given to him as Modern Rome? Yeah.
No, I asked the question, we give it a new name. And I'm asking, why do we give it a new name?
I'm asking what that new name is.
Okay, someone threw out Modern Rome. I'm going to call it Bad Rome or any Rome. It's a new name. Whatever name we give it, it's not the same name as that one. I'm asking, why is it a new name?
Is that when it gets its seat?
Right?
Is that when it receives its seat?
It receives its seat when? In 1989? When you say when?
I don't know exactly when.
Okay, so this class dynamic is changing. I'm the one that asks the questions, and you're the folks who answer. You don't ask me questions. So you've got to answer stuff. Don't ask me questions, because it's not going to work that way. Sister Brittany.
I'm not sure what you're asking. What are we giving a new name to?
What's the name of this entity here? Part A. What would you call it? And this, if you're studying with someone, what would you call that name? That King of the North. King of the North is who?
The papacy.
The papacy. So what would you call it in Part B? What would you call the King of the North there?
Yeah,
Papacy?
The same thing.
So it's the same thing, no difference.
Yeah.
I'm just that's what you'd do in a study. You'd say papacy to papacy, same thing, no difference. Rome only has two phases.
At that point, yeah.
At which at
By
1989.
1989, it's still in.
No, the two
second
phases is pagan and papal.
Right.
So papal Rome is only a singular phase. It's papal Rome here and it's papal Rome here.
Yeah.
No.
Is that what you're suggesting?
I thought your question was about
Oh.
dispensations.
Oh, no, what I asked was, I've heard, the grapevine, that this King of the North has two different names. And I asked what the name was, and someone said modern Rome. That's what I've heard. So I'm asking, what's the legitimacy of giving it a new name? And you're saying we don't do that, it's the same name.
Well, it can't be modern Rome until the threefold union is complete, from my understanding. So why would anyone call it modern Rome?
Oh, so when did it get its name changed then?
To modern Rome?
Yeah.
I would guess the Sunday law.
So the next verse, verse 41. So by the time you get to verse 41, now it's changed its name.
Guess someone else.
Okay. I don't want to make it too intense. I'm sorry. Brother Jonathan.
I wanted to say that I think modern Rome, it's not only the papacy, it's a threefold union, it's the United Nations.
So let me stop you there. Now you're saying modern Rome is not just a papacy. So is that one just a papacy?
No.
That's not just a papacy either then. So then I'm going to ask you, if that's not just a papacy, then who's the ships and the chariots and the horsemen?
You know what I'm saying, the desolating power in the Dark Ages was papacy.
Just a papacy?
Okay, with its armies, if you want to say it this way.
I don't know how you want to say it.
I would say it's just the papacy with its armies. But the
So
modern
let me stop you there. So this one is papal Rome and France. That's what you're identifying that King of the North to be. So I would put papal Rome plus France. That's what the definition of that is. Is that what you're saying? Because then I'm going to ask you who the King of the South is.
No, I would say it's papal Rome.
Just papal Rome.
Yeah.
And in this one you're going to say it's not just papal Rome.
If we stick to modern Rome, I would say it's not only the papacy, it's the United Nations and the US as well.
So the United Nations,
United States.
United States.
That combination and the papacy. Maybe I'm
So he combines with himself, because the ships and chariots and horsemen you're going to see is United States.
Yeah, it's its armies, yeah.
So how are you going to structure that verse there? You're not making them two separate entities.
That's right.
So you're not saying now that in the 1980s, John Paul II got into an alliance with Ronald Reagan. You're saying something different. You're reinterpreting how we approach that verse.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Okay. But I would say in verse 40 we see it's talking about the King of the North, and actually the King of the North, the United States. When we say the King of the North is the papacy, the United States is not the papacy. But it talks about ships, horses, and we know that's the United States, but it's part of the King of the North.
It's part of the King of the North.
Yeah, because because it's talking about the King of the North. enters into the countries. So
There's
somehow there must be a connection, or somehow the United States must be attached to the King of the North.
Okay, they might be attached, but you're saying they're the same thing. And I think there's a big difference between the two of them. They're the same thing, or they're attached.
45 is the start of the rise of modern Roma.
I thought this was foundational stuff. Perhaps I don't mean that as an insult.
Tyler has his hand up.
Who does?
Tyler.
Brother Tyler, sorry. He was just smiling, I didn't see his hand.
I think that yesterday it was, we drew that thing on the board, the depiction of Europe, right there where we have Rome in the middle and then
Just here?
7th and Byzantine. And what we identified was that you have the papacy in the middle in Rome, but you have these armies of Rome on either side protecting it and being the arm, so to speak, that can do things because the papacy can't do things. And I think that's what we're seeing. And we identified yesterday that threefold union is, whenever Rome is doing something, it's always present. And so Rome always needs to get help from someone to do its bidding. And that's what we're seeing here in verse 40.
But apparently we're not seeing that, because apparently we're seeing he gets help from himself.
No.
Because he and the army are the same entity. They're both the King of the North. But as you say, yesterday we taught otherwise. Sister, yeah, Joanna?
Yeah, kind of. Your question was why we would name it modern Rome. And I was just thinking each phase of Rome, when we say it's 3 phases, had to conquer 3 obstacles. So in 1989, it starts the progression to conquer the 3 obstacles, to be then the new phase of Rome.
Okay, so if you don't give it a new name, you lose your ability to have a triple application, don't you? Yeah? And it's a triple application that you have to use. I think you have to use it to actually understand end time prophecy. If have to is the right, maybe it'd be good to, maybe you could work it out. I don't know if you can work it out another way. It's the argument that we use. So that's why we've been forced to give it a new name. Because there's no name that's called modern Rome. It's one we've invented in this movement. There was a couple of hands up here somewhere, but I lost track of whose hands that. No one? Because you're not responding, so.
So we give it a new name at that point, but it hasn't reached its complete fulfillment to receive the fullness of that name until it conquers the three things.
Okay, yes, we know everything's progressive. Sister Brittany, you said that it's still the same name, but it's going to be different in the next verse. Are you still okay with that position, or you want to shift?
Well, I was going to say that it would receive the new name in verse 42.
I thought you said the Sunday law, sorry.
And then I changed my mind after I thought about it.
Okay, so you're saying it doesn't even get there until here?
Until what Sarah said, the 3 entities are conquered.
Until the 3 entities are conquered? Okay, so I don't know, I'm not going to praise. When did the 2 entities are conquered, or the 3?
For what? When it gets.
You said when the 3 entities are conquered. Is that what you said?
When the 3 entities come together and make modern Rome.
Okay, so when the 2 entities are conquered, then the threefold union comes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Is that what you say?
To my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay.
When did or will that happen? When did the threefold union come together? If you check Google, YouTube or whatever.
Google has a position.
Well, it's accessible on there. When did is that a future event? The threefold union coming together, is that a future event? 'Cause that's what the church teaches. Sunday law, spiritualism, Catholicism, the apostate Protestant, all going to come together.
It's all progressive.
But we don't teach that, do we? The threefold union's already here, isn't it? When did it come into existence? A hard date. 9/11?
1989.
Why 1989, Sister Chamilla?
The alliance that was formed.
What alliance?
Church and state.
With whom? Who's the church? Who's the state?
The Pope and Reagan.
Pope Ronald Reagan.
Oh.
Someone yesterday said that if you think about the UN and you think about the United States, they're just the same entity because they bankroll the UN, pay 50%, I think someone said 50% of all the finances. So who said 9/11? Why 9/11, Brother Tyler? Just a Bible verse.
Psalms 48, I think.
Okay, so are we all okay with Psalms 48? Without turning there, because if you're going to turn there, then we have to turn there. But are you okay with that turning there? Psalms 48 is 9/11. Is anybody not okay with that? Sorry? Kings were assembled, and then they ran away because of an east wind. They ran away because of an east wind, yeah? But what does President Bush Sr. say? Just around 1989, that kind of time. It's New World Order. He already tells you the New World Order is here. Yeah? Even if you didn't think about Reagan. So, yeah, I'm not saying it's in 89 per se, but in that history, he's already telling you it's here. So I'm saying that the threefold union is a past event. So if we're going to use that logic, Sister Brittany, I'd say that the new name would have been given in the past, not in the future, because they're already here.
Then what is manifested in verses 41 and 42?
The whole, okay, if you're going to, I'm going to say that it is manifested then. You say, what is?
Well, what's the point of, we've made a distinction between, from my remembrance, I thought we were saying that the threefold union is when they all come together, but I guess you're saying that they already have.
I'm just moving away, Mark.
No. So what took place in 41 and 42 then? If they're
What
already,
is going to?
Yeah.
The future.
If they're already all together.
They're going to begin
Am I
to.
the only one that's not getting this?
They're going to begin to do what they've been unable to do. So just with Psalms 48, they would have already done. They would have already exercised their ability, their strength, their power, their agenda. They would have exercised it, but they were prevented from doing that. Why were they prevented from doing that? Because of our foolishness. Yeah, it's our foolishness that's prevented them doing what they wanted to do. God in His mercy has protected us because we weren't ready. So we've got a little bit more time before they're going to be allowed to do what they want to do. So they're being restrained, even though they're already ready to pounce. They've been restrained until the four winds are loosed. When they're loosed, then they'll be able to put into effect what they've been desperate to do. They're not going to suddenly all form together and get things going. They're already ready. That's how I've understood what the threefold union is. It's already, they're already together, but they're unable to do what they want because of God's restraining power. Brother Bob, Brother Jason, Brother Tyler.
If you look at sacred history, even though there might have been some other backroom conversations between the United States and the papacy long before this, it came out in the open to the whole world. It was on the cover of Time magazine, where it shows a picture of John Paul shaking hands with Ronald Reagan right there, that they had already formed a union right there, and it was in 1989 that came out.
Only once they'd achieved their goal. Does that make sense? Whether you need to maybe think about it a bit more, or Brother Jason? Yeah, I mean, did that make the logic of that?
Makes sense.
Hopefully it's what we've already taught in the past and not changing things, I think.
I'm going to make a statement and based upon the threefold union, we're coming together. I am saying that they are coming together now. And there's a quotation in Testimony Volume 9, page 11, paragraph 2. I'm just going to read a little portion here. It says that the agency of evil are combining their forces and consolidating They are strengthened for the great crisis. Great changes are soon to take place in our world, and the final movement will be a rapid one. So I'm saying that they are coming together. They want to come together, the Sunderlands Adventism teach. We know that this is coming together now. They are consolidating.
What's the crisis?
The crisis is the
Wow.
Sunderland, to my understanding. Sunderland.
Yeah, that's how I understand it.
Yeah.
It says the what? The agencies of evil are
yeah.
consolidating.
Combining and consolidating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're already doing their work. Brother Tyler?
So there's, I think the answer to my question is progressiveness, but I just want to raise it, I guess. There's the quotation, and I was just looking for it, and I can't remember all the words, but it says something to the effect of, when Protestantism stretches his hand across and grasps the hand of spiritualism and papalism. I forgot exactly how it goes. Well, okay. She says, when that takes place, then we shall know it's time for the marvelous workings of Satan, and the threefold union is established. And we've always taught that the hands grasping was at the Sunday law. But I think, like I said, I think the answer to my question is progressiveness. There's always groundwork that's laid beforehand that leads you to a particular point.
When you said we, who's the we?
We what?
The church or this movement? When you said
This
we.
movement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I am changing it.
No, not. I don't know. I've always understood that one quotation. Maybe I can find it and I can show that.
5T451.
It says, when under the influence of this threefold union. That quotation says, when under the influence of this threefold union, our nation shall so repudiate the principles. And she goes now to talk about the Sunday law. But it is pointing then that the threefold union would have to be formed previously, because she says when under the influence, and she talks about, first I think in it she's talking about the image of the beast will be formed when fallen Protestants stretch their hands across the gulf and cross the abyss and clasp hands with papacy and spiritualism.
We okay to bottom this out and move on? In Psalms 48, we definitely know that's 9/11, don't we?
Yes.
How do we understand the phrase or the word assembled? Verse 4. Before you understand the word assembled, who are the kings that have been spoken of there? For lo, the kings were assembled.
Verse 4.
Who are these kings?
I think the kings of the earth.
Kings of the earth?
Yeah.
Where would you go to find them?
I think of the 10 kings and Revelation 17 and the Daniel. So it's representing those nations.
Revelation 17, you say?
Yeah, as far as the
Revelation 17, what verse?
To look for it.
And then you say Daniel. Daniel, what chapter and what verse? So, Brother Richie is saying that these kings are the kings of Revelation 17. Is there agreement or disagreement on that?
I'm in agreement.
Yep. 17 verse.
Where it says the 8. He said 8.
Always down. You can start there.
Sorry, you're saying verse 20? Some people say verse 8.
I'm saying it's 8 through.
Yeah, verse 12.
8 through 13.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest were 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Yes? Is that the same kings? And it says that they were assembled. And it also says they were together. Psalms 48 verse 4. So if they're assembled and they're together, they must have one mind, mustn't they? They've all got one purpose, to seek and destroy Jerusalem. So the definition of, I understand, of the assembly is the fact that there's now this one union. And the one union, by definition, even though you're going to struggle in verse 12, because it says the 1 hour, has to have a union connected with the beast in verse 12, 17:12. For them to come together, they must be with the beast that brings them together. Yep. Okay. Never mind? Okay. So, we're forced to make it a new name. Are we okay with that? New entity. We could go to, I don't know why, maybe we didn't think about, we could have gone to Revelation 17, verse 8. Because we've already discussed 17, verse 8. Why would we go to 17, verse 8? Or could we? Maybe I'm wrong. Because it's coming out of a bottomless pit. If it's coming out of a bottomless pit, it must be new manifestation of the same power. Yeah? So if it's, because it's a resurrection, isn't it? It's a resurrection of the same thing, so technically it would be the same. But because it comes out of a bottomless pit, it's a new manifestation. It's a different power. It's not the same one. So if it's not the same one, we had the legitimacy to give it a new name. Yep. So the only reason I wanted to mention all of that is to make us, so that we're sure that there's two separate entities. This one and this one are not the same beast. Different animal, yeah? So we've got how many Romes? 3 Romes. Do we have agreement on that? Yeah. Okay. So it says in the second part of the verse, the king of the north is going to retaliate against the king of the south. And that verse 40 part B begins what? The overthrow of 3 entities. Because that's what, I think Sister Brittany said that. This is the 3 powers that it has to bring down before it can rule supremely.
Just for clarification on the 3 Romes, we're saying those 2 Romes up there and then the future Rome?
No. This is number 3, number 2, and number 1 was pagan Rome. Yeah?
Papal modern.
Yeah, so we're calling it papal or modern Rome or modern papal Rome, whatever phrase we give it. Because our church doesn't make the distinction. Yeah? Our church doesn't make the distinction. Should they? Yeah. Because if you don't, you get into problems seeing what's happening today. Because what's happening today in the world?
What do you mean? Oh, yeah.
You've got the third woe that's we need to contend with. Revelation 9. And if you don't see modern Rome as a separate entity, you don't have anywhere to place the third woe. So what were you forced to do then with the third woe? What do you have to make it? You can't see this distinction. Sorry? Okay, that's where, but what? What would you be forced to make the third woe?
An attack on Christians.
By whom?
By Islam.
No.
No,
I don't think so.
Islam.
You would change who the third one is.
Yeah, what would it be changed to? What would you be forced to change? Because this is the logic that the pioneers used, James White particularly.
Maybe the Sunday law, maybe the...
You're saying when? I'm asking
no,
what?
I'm saying maybe the persecution under the Sunday law. I'm not sure.
Persecution under Sunday law? Sorry?
Was it Turkey, the understanding of it?
No, James White is going to tell you that the third woe is the plagues, isn't it? You'd be forced to put, if you don't see this distinction between the Romes, the punishment's going to happen at the end of the world. It's the 7 plagues. And I think we teach that in the church. You're forced to do that.
When are you saying it's becoming modern Rome? Is that 1798 or 1989?
What were the 2 dates?
Are you?
I've got the question. What were the 2 dates you just gave?
1798, which are part of 1114, Are you saying it becomes modern Rome? Or is it modern Rome in both?
No, this is papal Rome, and this
Right.
is modern Rome.
Okay, so from 1989 it becomes modern Rome.
Okay, so that's my next question. If we agreed, that's first of all, is to agree on that point. So, 1989, the first horn. What happens to the first horn? What are we silent for?
Conquered.
Sorry?
Conquered.
The first one?
Is that correct?
Well, if you're why are we saying horns?
Okay, power then, because the horn is the power. Sister Brittany said there's threefold, three people get taken. I just use the word horns because she didn't say it. Is what happens in 1989?
Which horn are you talking about? Like, are you talking about the lamb like peace horn? That's what my brain went.
Hope was over.
In the south.
Not fully conquered.
Atheism.
Is the first obstacle taken down in 1989?
Yes.
No.
We
No.
technically.
It's October now. January. It's 10 months. Is the first obstacle taken down in 1989? No, it's not, is it?
Yeah, only up to the neck.
That's what we've been teaching for 2 decades plus,
Yeah.
and we've realised that that's not quite correct.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because we're still in verse 40. The work has not been accomplished. Yeah? When's it going to be accomplished by? Sorry?
Midnight cry.
Midnight cry, someone said?
Sunday law.
Sunday law. So verse 40 would be Sunday law. What would be verse 41 then? Have a look.
What work were you saying would be?
The work of
Conquest.
Conquest
bringing,
of the king of
sorting the king of the south out. Sorry, someone said?
41 is the Sunday.
Yeah. So I'm asking when is verse 40 going to be completed by? Midnight cry?
Yes.
Do you understand the reason behind that? The logic? Yeah? Okay, so the first hasn't been done, then you've got the second and the third. What happens by the time you get to verse 42? Where are we in verse 42? We're here, yes? 538?
Yeah. And that model.
You saying where we?
If by Sunday law, verse 42 is a Sunday law, isn't it?
Yes. The rest of the.
Okay, no, sorry, it's not.
41
verse
is Sunday
41.
law.
Verse 41, I should say. By verse 42, we're here, kind of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
When we do verse 41 verses 42, it's a bit of a problem because are you actually here in verse 42 or somewhere else? Verse 42 is a bit of a. I don't know. I don't think you can put it on a line that easily.
No.
Universal Sunday law, right?
Sorry?
Verse 42. It'd be a universal Sunday law, right?
Yeah. So if we're forced to put it somewhere, we'd have to put it here.
Yeah.
I guess.
On that line, yeah.
So it's all complete by then. So here, verse 41, should have said verse 41, it's 538, we're okay with that? Yeah? So if verse 42 is here, so we're saying all of the two people, all of the three entities have all been taken down by that stage, by the end here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
What's the close of probation?
In reality, does it actually work that way? Where would you put Egypt being taken down, the world being taken down? Brother Tyler?
Yeah.
Back here?
At some point before.
Like halfway or?
Well, it depends on what kind of light you're looking at it, I guess, because it's definitely all complete there if you want to talk about the progressiveness of conquering the world. But it begins at least at the Sunday law, it's definitely there, but.
Is that okay with the people? What does it say here?
Rule one out, that's what I was thinking. One out, 1 to these.
So the kings are ruling with her. So we couldn't really put verse 42 here, can we?
Yeah.
Because they're not ruling anything, now they're about to be destroyed. The ruling's ended.
Yeah.
So if you put verse 42 at the back end, philosophically it's wrong. If you're going to draw a simplistic line, you know, it works. And the reason you do that is because where are you going to place the universal Sunday law? It's a bit late to put it there, isn't it? Because if it's universal, what are the kings doing?
They wouldn't be reigning if it
Because
wasn't.
you're saying not all the kings are doing it because it's not
Yeah.
universal yet. Brother Tyler.
I've always read the universal Sunday law is that it's not, and I could be wrong, it's not an actual decree, but it's the fact that everyone has done this work. You know, that if each person here represents a country, we've all made our Sunday law and it's now universal.
Yeah.
And
So
at that point, yeah.
I'm really not trying to change the way, Mark. I'm just making sure that when we say universal, what point are we making? So there's that thing. But my question was none of those ones. My question is, if this is modern Rome, when did modern Rome become the king of the north? Was it here, or here, or here?
Well, if they're a king,
I'll put dates on these. Well, you bet. I'll be date setting another one. 1989, Sunday law, and I'll put COP because that's how we normally do it. That's why I asked that question. Yeah, 1989. Are we okay with those three? It begins the work. It's not complete. I agree with that. So where is he the king of the north? So 1989. So if it's 1989, I'm going to read the verse. It says, this person in 1989 began to take down the king of the south, and that made him the king of the north.
well, that's who's at war in verse 40. I'm not sure of how you just phrase it. My brain takes a second.
Okay.
But in verse 40, it's continuing the war of the king of the north and the king of the south.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back to 10 minutes ago. You said they're two separate entities. Now you're going to make it sequential and change its continuation.
It's still Rome. Rome never changes, right?
Ah, see? You've boxed yourself into a corner. Rome did change. You agreed Rome changed. Rome never changes.
Not in heart.
If Rome never changes, then what's the third woe? Where are you going to place that? You lose your ability to place the third woe. If we lose the triple application that Rome comes 3 times, that it's a new Rome, brand new Rome, then you get stuck. We don't have a message. Does everybody see the significance or the seriousness of understanding these things that way?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah? So coming back to my question, when did this power here, I'll call it MR, modern Rome, this was papal Rome. When does modern Rome become the king of the north? If I said to you, John went and beat someone up, when did John become John? When he beat the person up? Sorry?
He's always John.
It's always John.
Before he beat the guy up. Because John went to go beat
Yeah.
someone up.
So my question is, when does modern Rome become the king of the north? Sorry?
Must be before 1989.
So it must be before 1989.
Oh, that's your point.
We okay with that? Sister Brittany, you're not okay? It's just funny.
How can that be if we're saying modern Rome began in 1989?
No, I never said it began in 1989. People think it began in 1989. All verse 40 is, it just brings you to a date. That's at the back of my question.
What's at the back of your question?
that when did it become modern Rome? Brother Jonathan.
I have a simple question. What makes the king of the north the king of the north?
Okay, I know. I don't know actually if a lot of people are new, but we did tackle all of this when I came last year, about 18 months ago, in the classes. So if they're still up, you could go and review them because we discussed a lot of these issues. So it's a bit of a refresher. Although it doesn't really work because it's all brand new people. Although you were in the class.
Yeah.
So you Daniel 2 classes? The English class?
Yeah.
Well, no, yeah, but they were Daniel. I didn't really do many Daniel 2 classes. So what makes the king of the north
To the king of the north.
king of the north? So what's the definition of being the king of the north? You have to be a
King.
First of all, you have to be a king. So we got that. You have to be a king.
You have to live in the
Okay.
north.
So my question. So you have to do what?
You have to conquer 3 territories.
And then you become the king of the north.
You just have to go north.
Because he's already the king of the north. He hasn't even started his work yet.
Yeah, we had to be ruling in the north.
Okay. So first of all, you have to be a king, and then you have to rule from where?
The north.
Sorry? You have to rule from the north.
Yeah.
Yeah? Although Babylon isn't even in the north. We know that, don't we? Babylon's in the east. But we'll go with the north. So you have to be a king and you have to rule in the north. Where's the north?
Over in Europe.
Sorry? Who said that?
She did.
Somewhere in Europe, you said?
He said
Who said that?
It's relative. North is relative to wherever you're at. Because I can go north from here in a different place than north from there.
Okay, so in this context, okay, let's try and address. Let's not go with this one because we're not sure about it. Let's go to history like we're supposed to. Let's go to this one. When did Papal Rome become the king of the north?
Yeah, that's how I would think 330.
Right?
I would, when the Papal Rome become the king of the north, when they receive their seat on the throne, that makes them a king.
And when's that?
330.
So you're making it here. Becomes the king of the north here? Do we agree with that? King of the north is, no? Sorry?
I guess, well, I was thinking it's the line of conquering. At one point, I forgot who the kings were, but he conquered, whoever conquers the area that's north relative of Jerusalem hands down the title of the king of the north, and eventually the Pope took control of that line of succession. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so it takes control of the line of succession. So when does he begin to take control of the line of succession? That's the question.
538, he becomes the Pope, but even that's progressive.
So you're saying he becomes the king of the north here in 538?
Yeah, well, he's not in power until 538, so yeah, I suppose so.
So by 538, if that's a Sunday law, we're here.
Okay, I get that.
So you've got a structural problem because he's already the king of the north before he even does this.
Yeah.
So you're putting the cart before the horse, but it's still showing you that that can't be correct.
So when the 3 horns are plucked up?
Once they've been plucked up,
Once they've been
then you're saying he's becoming the king of the north here in Daniel 12:1. Because that's that's when the 3 horns are plucked up.
in the first 40 days.
So okay, so my second question is, do all 3 Romes have to operate in the same way, Sister Brittany?
I'd say it.
Because if you don't do that, you don't have any methodology. Because that's the argument you're going to use. Takes down 3 powers, takes down 3 powers, takes down 3 powers. So once you start doing that, then you're forced to run through that logic, and you can't just change it any way you want to.
So then Brother Richard is correct, Rome never changes.
In its operations, yeah, it never changes. Yeah, I mean, of course, yes, we know Rome never changes. Yeah? No one ever changes. Do they? Because Jerusalem never changes. It's always in a rebellion. Islam never changes. No one ever changes. We're all the same people. So, are we not okay with 330?
I am.
That's a true thing.
Brother Nathan, what's the seat?
Well,
And what is the seat?
Throne.
Is that what you said, sorry?
it's a state power. It's Constantinople. It's
Not all that history, but a seat is a throne, isn't it?
yeah.
And the dragon power gave him his seat. Would you agree that he gave it in 330? So if he gave him his seat, he must be a king, mustn't he?
Pagan Rome. I mean, it's Rome, but it's yeah.
Let me ask you another question, just generally. Who makes the Sunday law in 321? Not the name of the person, the power.
Rome.
State.
Okay, which Rome?
Pagan.
Yeah, pagan Rome makes the Sunday law. And he makes it in which country? Sorry?
Rome.
Rome here, yes? So he makes the Sunday law here. So once you make that Sunday law, what's about to happen to you?
National ruin.
You're going to be punished.
Yeah.
Yeah? By the four not by Islam. No, by the four trumpet powers. Yeah?
Yeah.
So where are they going to send their weaponry? They're going to send it to Turkey.
To defend against Islam, you mean?
What do you mean? Where they gonna send any weaponry? What does it mean?
Talk about
Those four empires, who are they going to come and attack?
Rome.
So they're going to come and attack Rome, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah? They're not going to come and attack Constantinople.
No. There is no constant.
You agree with that?
Yes.
Just conceptually, I mean, do we agree that they're going to, if you make the law here, they're going to attack you here because that's where you are?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So who is the person that made the law?
The emperor.
Constantine.
Yes.
So why isn't Constantine the one that's going to get punished? Why doesn't Constantine get punished when he's the one who made the law? I'll ask a different question. Does Constantine get punished for making a Sunday law?
Yeah, I mean, his kingdom is ripped apart. You can consider that his punishment. Kind of, a king is a kingdom.
Does his kingdom get ripped apart?
Yeah.
So he comes over here, is this part of the kingdom getting ripped apart?
But doesn't he have a victory there?
Right?
Doesn't he have a victory there? Doesn't it resolve now? I'm not sure of the history.
His kingdom here in the east doesn't get ripped apart.
No, because
It's only in the west. In fact, if you go and check the history, when the Huns came, where were they headed? East or west? They were headed to the east. Then through some strange phenomena, they shift direction and go to the west. There's some marriage and things like that, you know, some real life history. But they shift from the east to the west. All the four powers are going to come and destroy Western Europe. Why are they destroying Western Europe when Western Europe was innocent? They didn't do anything. It was Constantine the emperor that makes the law. So why are they not attacking him? What's his title, by the way? King of the...
King of the North.
Is he not King of the North? Is Constantine King of the North?
I don't know.
Is pagan Rome the King of the North? Yes?
Yeah.
We agree pagan Rome's the King of the North. So if pagan Rome's the King of the North, Constantine must be the King of the North. Yes? Who made the Sunday law here, 321? King of the North, didn't he? King of the North made the Sunday law. So when the King of the North makes a Sunday law, who should be getting punished? King of the North. But when he makes a Sunday law in 321, what does he do?
What does he do?
He moves location. So when he moves location, he takes all of his household, packs it up and moves to Turkey. When the punishment comes, where should it be headed? Where should it be directed at?
Turkey.
Should be directed at Turkey. But it's not. My question is, why is it not? Why is the punishment not headed and focused upon Turkey when the man who caused the problem has moved there?
Because he was being influenced.
Sorry? Because he was influenced? No, not because he was influenced.
I'm guessing because.
Let's not guess. We don't need to. We've got all the information. We don't need to guess. But I know you don't.
It's like what we talked. I think we talked about this yesterday. Is that the person who does the Sunday law never gets punished till the end. They always. It's always their armies or someone else that's receiving that for them. And it seems like the same thing here with Western Rome. Sort of takes the hit for Constantine.
Okay. I'm about to say something that I always get in trouble over nowadays, because they say, some people say, I no longer use the Bible or Spirit Prophecy, I give fairy tale stories to make applications. So I'm about to do that. You all heard of Goldilocks? Okay. So what's the story there? She comes into what kind of a house? Occupied?
Unoccupied.
Or? It's vacant, isn't it? Okay, so who's Goldilocks in our story? The papacy. It comes into where? In a vacant home. And when Goldilocks goes to a vacant home, what's there? The food. Everything's there, isn't it? They just left and left everything there. So when Constantine leaves from Rome to go to Turkey, what's he left? Because he doesn't take everything with him. No, he didn't. Okay, yeah, but.
Could you repeat that for non-native English-speaking people, please?
Okay, so we'll forget the parable, because if you don't get it, it doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
So I'll go without the parable now. Pagan Rome lives here. When he moves to Constantinople, he leaves something. What does he leave? Sorry? Not his city. He leaves his seat, doesn't he? What does that mean? He gave him his seat. He left his seat there. So when he went to Constantinople, he didn't have the same seat. He had a different seat. Do we agree with that?
You mean literally a seat?
However way you want to take it, literally or not.
So the seat gets punished.
Okay, not literally the seat. Yeah, literally, it is literally the seat. What is the seat? Literally. It's the throne, isn't it?
Yeah. The place of his authority.
So he left the throne in Rome.
So when he would have taken it with him, then...
If he'd taken it with him,
Then they would have gone to Constantinople.
they would have had to go to Constantinople, because that's where the king of the north is. So he leaves his throne there. What's attached to a throne? Sorry?
Control, power.
Authority, control.
It's a crown, isn't it? 'Cause that's the definition of a throne. And the crown is a symbol of your kingship or your title, isn't it? Because you wear a fair mitre across your forehead. Either it says Mystery Babylon or it says Holiness unto the Lord. One of the two. Your crown is a symbol that identifies who you are. So on that crown, what does it say? What's written on that crown? KN, King of the North, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he left his crown, which is attached to his throne, back in Rome when he left. Because he knew he's about to be punished. So he's going to abscond and leave, run away. Run away. He makes a problem and he runs away from the problem. Can we conceptualize that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why in 330 AD you begin the work of the four trumpets, and it's going to come in this part of Rome, Western Rome, because that's the part of Rome that caused the problem. It wasn't Eastern Rome that caused the problem, because Constantine has left his seat, which is his title, way back here.
Didn't you just say that Western Rome is innocent?
Yes, they were innocent. But someone's going to come and sit here, and it's going to be the Pope. The Pope's going to come and sit in Rome, and he's going to say, oh, look, that's a nice bowl of porridge, that's a nice seat. I'll sit down here, I'll take it. Because it's just been offered to him on a plate. So once he's offered to him, he takes it, he puts that crown on, and he becomes the King of the North. And then when these powers are coming, they're saying, where's this King of the North who causes all these problems? It's in Rome. So that's why all the targeting there is in this part of the kingdom. That's why Eastern Rome is innocent. It never gets hurt. Doesn't get fragmented.
So Eastern Rome is innocent, not Western Rome.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the question was asked, was Western Rome innocent?
In the sense of the people, in the sense of the... No, Western Rome in the sense of the Pope. Was the Pope innocent? Did he do anything wrong? Did the Pope do anything wrong?
Yes.
What?
When you read the history, it was because of their factions that they influenced Constantine to...
Oh, I don't mean in that sense. I mean in this kind of story.
No.
He didn't do anything wrong. He just came to an empty seat and he sat down innocently. He didn't realise what he was getting into. So he just does his own thing. So as soon as he puts that title on, that's why these people are going to start beginning to get punished. Because pagan Rome has moved location. And when they moved, they didn't take all their titles with them because they knew they were going to be in trouble. So they left everything there. All the evidence got left in Rome. So when they came to attack Rome. So that's why the King of the North is in 330 AD. But he's not able to exercise himself until here. So you see the progressive nature, 200 years. He's sitting on the throne, but it takes 200 years to actually wield power. Things happen faster at the end of the world. So my question is, no, my point is, 330 is before the three horns are plucked up, isn't it? Yeah. Long before. When's the first horn plucked up? Normally we give a date. When's the last one done? 538, the first one? 538, 40 what?
I think 45 years before that.
45. 493. Everybody agree with that?
Okay.
Yep, that's the correct answer. Just remember 45 and you'll get the right answer. Even if you can't remember the date. Because everybody knows 538, just take 45 from it. It's not coincidence, is it?
No.
Okay. So, we know that he's the King of the North before he plucks up three horns. We agree with that. So we come back to our history. We're not going to finish this because I only want to introduce this concept to you because there's a discussion in our movement about King of the North and the King of the South at the end of the world. Is it Russia, is it not Russia? And we're going to have all of this intricacy and intrigue about it's in the United States. This King of the North, King of the South issue. So before you even begin to tackle any of that, you need to know about when the King of the North and King of the South actually take their roles at the end of the world. And one of the misconceptions that we have in our movement, I think, is that the papacy, modern Rome, is already the King of the North before 1989. So when did it become King of the North? Modern Rome is already the King of the North before 1989. It's a misconception that, yeah, because most people think it becomes the King of the North either here at the third or here in 1989 when it begins to do its work. When it begins to do its work, it becomes the King of the North. And historically, you know that's not correct. Grammatically, you know it's not correct.
You just said it's a misconception that...
Maybe I said it wrong. The misconception...
To believe that the papacy became King of the North before 1989?
That they don't believe it, they don't see it. I'll rephrase it. The misconception is that we think the King of the North, the title is given somewhere in this history here, okay. Not before. Okay. But grammatically it's before. Prophetically, if you take three Romes, it was before here.
Right.
So if you go back to pagan Rome, when was pagan Rome the King of the North?
The year, I remember the year.
Sorry? When does pagan Rome begin to rule supremely?
31.
31 BC?
Yeah.
Bible verse for that. Not Sister Olivine, someone else. Which book are we going to go to? Daniel 11.
2.
Sorry?
Daniel 11:22.
Daniel 11:22.
31 BC.
Oh, 31 BC. I think pretty much ready. Sorry.
Anyone else?
In 24 we have
Verse 24.
time.
Shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. Yeah? The time is 360 years. Takes you from 31 BC to 330 AD. Yeah? You have to figure around with that year zero stuff, and you get to 360. So we know that, but if you go through an evangelistic campaign, where does the church mark the transition from Greece to pagan Rome?
332.
No, not on the chart, the church.
I think that's what I was taught. That
All the ones I've ever seen, no one has an opinion?
I don't even remember what they
So what's the question? Did you say?
168.
I can't hear you.
168.
168, sorry, yeah. That's what I've seen over and over again. It's 168. Why 168?
It's the Battle of Pydna, right?
Yeah, Battle of Pydna, where essentially Macedonia is going to be subjugated. It's the beginning of the crushing of Greece.
Yeah.
168. Then you go to the league with the Jews. 161, 158. Then you eventually get to Cleopatra 31, Battle of Actium, and there's a whole history in between there, where it begins to rule supremely. Because by 31 BC, it's taken down 3 territories. Yeah? Which verse is that? Pagan Rome, subjugation of 3 territories. Where do we see that? Which book? Daniel, chapter? Daniel chapter 8, verse?
9.
Sorry, someone said?
9.
Verse 9. Daniel 8, verse 9. The east, the south, and the pleasant land. 3 territories that it takes down.
Yep.
Yeah? So we're all familiar with that. The dates? We've got 31 BC, the other 2.
64 BC, 63 BC.
You've got 64, 63, you've got...
I thought it was 65, but
30
I can be wrong.
No, it's not 30 BC. The last one, the south, is 31 BC, the Battle of Actium. The other 2 are before that. So some people say 65, 64. So 65, 64, 63. Sorry?
Pompey.
Pompey. General Pompey. He goes to subjugate the eastern part of the Roman Empire because they're causing trouble. He goes to Syria, and then he goes to the glorious land. Yes?
What was the date of the first one?
They're saying 64 and 65. I think it's 64, but I'm open to...
Well, he asked for the first one. Are you asking for the south? Or who you
Oh, for the south it's 31.
31.
For the east it's 64 stroke 65. And I think it's for Jerusalem it's 63.
Okay.
But I think it's 64. I think it's 64, 63. But I'm open to correction on that one. So, if we were to go with that, pagan Rome would be the king of the north before it takes down the 3 territories, before it takes down Syria. So you'd have to put a marker where that happens, wouldn't you? I don't know where you'd want to put that. I would place it 168. Begins to take down the Macedonian Empire. And that would be marking when it becomes the king of the north. So if that were the case, you begin to see here, 330, papacy begins to become the king of the north. So you'd have to go back here in the modern Rome and work out where that would be. So all those people who are arguing about the king of the north and the king of the south at the end of the world and making all these applications, first thing I think you need to be considering is, where do you even understand the king of the north to be created or to come into existence at the end of the world before you can start talking about anything? And the other thing that we've brought up in class is from 31 BC, king of the south is taken down, is it? Is that correct?
South.
The war between the king of the north and the king of the south. As you go through history, Greece, where's the last place we see the king of the south?
When,
What date, what event, what history?
In all of history?
Greece.
Oh, just, okay.
Greece.
wasn't when, it's big, but when, I forget, one of the guys got chased down into Egypt. The Mark, yeah, chased.
Okay, so if you're going to talk about Mark Antony, you're going to talk about Egypt. Now you're going to end up going to 31 BC.
Yeah.
Brother Tyler?
It's verse 13, 14, 15, and 11 for Greece, right?
Okay.
Oh, what?
So you're going to end up getting to the Battle of Panium. Panium, how you pronounce
Well,
it?
that's when at least in the time of Greece, because after that Rome's going to come in the next verse, 2 verses later.
Okay, so when Rome comes in and it starts to take control of the situation, it's going to do that in 3 steps. So what's happened to the king of the south in that history? Is it still there or is it not there?
When it comes in at first, it's there.
Greece is divided into how many parts?
4.
Let's say 3. Daniel 8 verse 9. Yeah, Daniel 8 verse 9. So Rome has to take down all of those 3. And this one is the king of the north, Syria, the glorious land, which you might call cold Syria, the bit that's in between, no man's land, and here's the king of the south. So this is king of the north, no man's land in between, and king of the south. We okay with that? And the verses that you said, verses 14, 15 and 16, is basically going to take you to the Battle of Panium, which is the last place that you see it. Then Rome is going to be introduced, and when Rome comes onto the scene, what's he going to tackle first? Okay, so first of all, it's going to take down Macedonia, right at the very beginning, 168. Then it's going to take down, which is not part of this, which is why you said Syria. First it takes this one, then it takes this one, then it's going to take down Egypt. But Egypt we've already identified as the king of the south, isn't it? So the king of the south gets taken in 31 BC. Sorry? Is that a question or a statement?
It's completed in 31 BC, I said.
Okay, yeah. So the king of the south, what happens to him afterwards? So he doesn't exist. So he doesn't exist. When does he come back?
French Revolution.
So he comes back all the way here in, what date would we put for the revolution?
89.
Sorry? 1789. So here the king of the south is going to come back. When he comes back now, what is it? New manifestation of satanic power. It's the same power, but now he's come back. So when he comes back, they're going to resume the fight. This fight between the king of the north and king of the south, did it begin with Greece? It's been going on a long time before that, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You've got the Assyrians and the Egyptians. You've got the Babylonians and the Egyptians. This war has always been going on.
Yeah.
You've got the Medo-Persians and the Egyptians. This struggle has always existed between King of the North and King of the South. So in this period here, they've just been annihilated, but they come back here into history. Yeah? And then, do they remain? What happens to the King of the South here after 1798?
It's gone again.
Does it go, or does it stay?
Changed, it moved.
It may move, but does it stay?
Yes.
In France?
No, not in France. As a symbol.
Yes.
Does this person die like it doesn't exist here? So it's going to go all the way here, and then we're going to get to where? 1989. So at least we've got the King of the South here in this history. Now it's going to go from France to Russia. So all I'm suggesting is that if you're going to start dealing with this issue in verses 5 to 16, thereabouts, Daniel 11, and start talking about the King of the North, the King of the South, you at least have to make a correct application of history and track the King of the South in what it's doing before you start saying that making the King of the South Russia is an incorrect understanding of these verses. I don't know if that makes any sense to people here, but people have asked some questions on this issue. So I'm saying it's not an answer to that question per se, but it's how you think. I think you should be approaching the problem, to actually track these kings and see what they're doing and when they come into existence. So we haven't tackled, or we haven't even seen, when the King of the North, the papacy, so when the modern Rome becomes the King of the North, because it's not 1989. So somewhere between 1798 and 1989, the King of the North has to have come into existence. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your goodness and your watch care. We ask and pray that you would be with us and bless us. Lord, there are so many things that we take for granted, so many preconceived ideas that we may or may not hold on to. We ask for wisdom and understanding as we try to carefully study these words. We pray that you would guide us through your Holy Spirit. We know that man's wisdom is useless when it comes to an understanding of your word. Therefore, we beseech you, Lord, that you would guide and direct us in these studies. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.